Hey, thank you for joining me today. This is Sandra from Crafted Bliss Studio. Today I am sharing a gift card and gift bag combo with this week's Craft and Desert Divas theme, Happily Handmade, in mind. Now I'm starting off by prepping my card base with an anti-static bag because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing. Once my card is all prepped, I'm ready to start stamping. You want to use a really sticky ink when you're heat embossing, so I'm using a Versamark ink pad. The image that I chose for my background is a floral image from the Hello Beautiful stamp set from Craft and Desert Divas. I'm just going to be randomly stamping this, turning my stamp in lots of different directions to create a nice pattern for my background. So I'm going to keep stamping my background using the Versamark ink and my floral image. And I'm only going to do a few of these images at a time before I start sprinkling on my embossing powder. And here I'm using some Ranger embossing powder in gold. So I'm just going to sprinkle this on, then I'll put it aside and I'll start stamping my background again. And this is just a process. You just stamp and add embossing powder until you have the whole thing covered. So I'm just about finished. I want to get the edges really well, so I like to stamp my image like half off the card just to make it look like it's a continuous pattern. And then I'm going to add the rest of my embossing powder. And while I'm doing this, my heat gun is already heating up on the side. So you want your heat gun to be nice and hot when you bring it to the embossing powder. So I just tested my heat gun to make sure it's nice and hot, and I've brought it to my cardstock to start melting that embossing powder. This is like magic to me because you go from this powdery finish to this beautiful shine. Now that our background is complete, we can move on to decorating our card base. So for this, I'm going to be using the Craft and Desert Divas inside scalloped octagon dies, and I'm going to try to match it to my background by tapping some Versamark ink all over the frame and adding the same gold embossing powder as I did for the background. So I've got my octagon all inked up and I'm sprinkling on the same gold embossing powder as I did for the background and heating it up with my embossing gun. Again, we have magic. So now that we have a beautiful embossed octagon, I'm going to take two more of the octagons that I die cut with my Craft and Desert Divas inside scalloped octagon dies. And you can see that I made markings on my octagons. This is just to help me line them up to one another so that they fit perfectly together. I'm just using some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive to glue these together. Now that I have everything stacked up together and they're all glued, I'm going to just set this aside to dry. And I'm going to lay an acrylic block on top just to keep them flat. Now we're going to move on to our sentiment. For this, I'm using the piece that's left behind from the inside scalloped octagon dies, and I'm using a sentiment from Craft and Desert Divas kindness stamps. I'm positioning it inside the octagon with my image to make sure I have good placement and know exactly where I want it to go. So now I'm moving to my stamp press and I'm putting in my sentiment, and I'm just trying to make sure it's nice and straight. You're going to see here I'm going to be using my corner ruler just to double check and make sure that it's nice and straight, because there's nothing more frustrating than a crooked sentiment. I'm prepping it again for some heat embossing. I'm stamping it with some Versamark ink and adding my gold embossing powder. And now it's all heat set and ready to go. So now that we have our sentiment all ready, it's time to put our card together. Here I'm getting my octagon scallop shape all ready and prepped with some glue, and I'm using my T-square ruler to make sure that it is nice and straight, and I even checked my marks to make sure that I have it in the direction that I want that shape to go onto my card. I'm inserting my sentiment piece, and now I'm going to be adding my floral image that is from the Hello Beautiful stamps from Craft and Desert Divas. I colored that image with my Copic markers and fussy cut it out. And here you can see that I'm adding some Nouveau Jewel drops, and this is in, I think it's the Strawberry Coulis. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And I'm adding one more image on the top just to round out everything. And now my card is complete. So now it's time to create our gift bag. I'm using just a craft paper bag here, and I've prepped it just like I did my card background using my anti-static bag, and I'm stamping my image from the Hello Beautiful stamp set using Versamark ink. I'm going to cover that bag with the same gold embossing powder as I did with the card. So these are really going to match and complement one another. So we're heating everything up and watching that magic of the melting embossing powder. I've also had a frame already prepped and ready that I did off camera, and we're going to pop that up with some foam dots. And then we're going to add a couple more images from that Hello Beautiful stamp set inside the frame. So this part comes together quite quickly. I'm just placing these images to make sure I know exactly where I want them, and then I'll just glue them in place. So I'm using more of my Nuva Deluxe adhesive, and I have a few pop dots on the back of that floral image. And I'm going to place it in the center, and then my bag is all complete. So I hope you like this gift set today and that it inspires you to create your own. We thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you'll hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.